Good evening, guys, and welcome to yet another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. I do want to apologize up front. I had some stuff to do with the family right around the time I wanted to get set up, so I had to quickly get that done out of the way. I apologize for being 14 minutes late, but I still welcome you all to the show. We have our Elko review and our Irwindale West Series preview and some more news to announce. I'm so glad you guys have joined me on your Wednesday nights. As of course, follow me on social media at Start and Park Car. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow my good friends. We also got, NASCAR Man on Twitter. Go follow him. Go follow Brock Beard, my friends at ARCA Racing, and all your favorite ARCA Racing drivers. Go give them a follow. Support the series. It'd be much appreciated. So let's get right into the show, guys. So we had Elko, and I was genuinely shocked at the entry list. That's one thing I went over last week in my preview show. And it's the one thing that I was kind of shocked with still this week as well. We had 20 cars, which for an Elko race is usually pretty good considering that Elko gets one of the lowest fields of the year. Just like Berlin, Elko and Berlin, I feel like are the two, I would say, biggest ARCA tracks on the schedule that will struggle for a field size. So to see 20 cars was definitely a pleasant surprise. Despite, the many starting parks that I expected, we only ended up getting three. We only ended up getting three starting parks out of the field, which genuinely was also a good surprise because I love seeing more and more cars try to attempt this full race. So again, guys, like I said, welcome to the show. Hopefully some people will be filing in here because, again, I do apologize for starting late. So we had 20 cars on our entry list. The starting parks, like I had predicted last week, Zachary Tinkle in the 10, D.L. Wilson, who's now driving the 0-1, and Dallas Fruwe. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, in the 27. I was unsure of what Brad was doing, and it was clear watching the race that Brad definitely tried to go the whole race because he was still out there with about 25 laps to go, but unfortunately, overheating problems kept hurting him. Overall, the race was very good, very dominating performance again, just like last year. Although he didn't win, remember, guys, last year, Ty Gibbs led almost the entire race, even though he didn't win. And it was the exact same thing this year with the Gibbs KBM team. Gibbs KBM team, kind of the same thing. And you could easily say, for some reason, Gibbs, KBM, that team, they have figured out the magic to running Elko. And it's not a very easy track to run, especially with how short it is. You just got to get the car dialed in right, and they were able to get it done despite some constant pressure from Jesse Love. So we'll get into our practice results here. Practice was run during this time. All 20 cars did make a lap. The 03 of Alex Club, we'll get into him. Poor Alex had a rough night. My good friends over on that team had a really, really rough night. They did finish the race, and I have a really, really fun Facebook post to tell you guys about their weekend. They really are the definition of never give up, and I really hope Alex does get some sponsorship in the future because he's got a good team. They just don't have a lot of money to be competitive with, but they try their best. Brad was then the next slowest at 19th. 18th was DL, 17th was Dallas, 16th was Zachary, and 15th was Bryce, kind of the usual back markers. Colton Collins, I did want to make note of it. Colton, I believe, it looked like he was driving one of the former Steve Austin 22 cars. I don't know how many Chevrolets Eric has, but it is possible that that was the same car that may have been wrecked back at Pensacola and just now has been properly repaired. Even going back to that wreck at Pensacola, the car did not look totaled at all. It just looked like it definitely needed some framework and a new front clip for sure, and possibly a new motor, which, again, can be replaced over time. The chassis didn't look like it was totaled one bit. So good to see Colton out there in his first race. Willie Mullins was back, again, teaming up with Andy Hillenberg in the 12. The two ladies, once again, did struggle. Tony Breitinger and Amber Balkin in practice were both outside the top 10. The top 13 cars were only separated by about half a second. So that tells you that it's a pretty tight field from 1st to 13th at Elko because it's just such a it's such a short track that even a half a second apart, that is so much. Despite being so little, a half a second at a 3/8 mile is still quite a bit. So that tells you where some of these drivers were getting it and losing it at the same time. Nick Sanchez, Daniel Dye were both outside of the top 5, which was a pleasant surprise. Sanchez, I will admit, on these short tracks lately has not been showing a lot of good speed. Rev has been struggling a little bit, although Raja did show some promise in practice. The run he would have later in the race was not more than stellar to what we know he's capable of. Sammy Smith and Jesse Love, the two dominant cars, they beat the field by a 10th. They were separated by just 55 one-thousandths of a second. Sammy Smith would lead, and that would continue into qualifying. Now, after practice, the 30 of Amber Balkan would have some mechanical issues, and the 03 would continue to have mechanical issues from practice. They had a master cylinder go bad. So therefore, the 30 and the 03 were not eligible to qualify, so only 18 would. Sammy Smith won the pole again, but again, not by much, just by 13 one-thousandths of a second. Landon Pemilton, I'll give him credit, man, for his very first ARCA start, being the second fastest Venerini entry, beating Tom Hezert III, who was my pick for the whole race, was a pleasant surprise as well. Tony Breidinger actually had a much better qualifying effort than I thought she would have. She actually outran the Rev Racing entry of Nick Sanchez and Greg Van Elst. So a very impressive qualifying effort by her. Willie Mullins was 10th. Ron Vandermeer was 11th. Raja all the way down in 12th. And this is where I've been noticing a lot lately that Rev Racing has really struggled, surprisingly, on these short tracks. And it's really shocking considering that you would think, with their late model program, and they've been in the K&N, what was formerly the K&N series many years ago. They've been running the K&N series for over 10 years. Now they're, of course, it's ARCA now. So they've been running the short track stock car division for well over 10 years. And it just seems they just don't have the speed. And that kind of goes back to what it was back in the days. Because I remember going to the Iowa Speedway races when it was back in the K&N series. And again, Rev just was never really that competitive. So maybe that speed and the figuring out of these short tracks, they're good at some, but they're not good at all. And it's clear that the last couple of weeks that they've definitely struggled. They've been up there because, the fields are small, but they've definitely not showed race-winning speed, not one bit. And it was clear that after these practice and qualifying results that no Rev entry was going to be competitive tonight, much less win, which is a shame to see because these are two of the top championship contenders. And it sucks seeing, the two top championship contenders right now, running outside the top 5. Because that shouldn't be happening. They should be up there, but unfortunately, Rev just hasn't figured it out, and we'll have to hopefully see if they can figure it out at the next race at Mid-Ohio. Although I'm not really sure. I think Nick might have a better opportunity on that track because I believe he does have some more road racing skills. I mean, does anyone know, has Raja even been on a road course? I'm not sure about that. I think Daniel Dye's been on a road course before, which might give him a little bit of an advantage. But again, we'll just have to see. Sammy Smith won the pole. Jesse Love was second. Landon Pemilton was third. Daniel Dye was fourth. And Tom Hezert, who was my pick, was fifth. Only 18 cars qualified of the 20, like I said before. Brad was pretty slow, I'm going to add. He was almost 2.5 seconds off the pace. And the reason why I bring this up was in the post-race interview. I'll just skip ahead to the post-race interview right now. We know Sammy Smith won the race. He basically said we had to get past a lot of junk. Those were his words. And a lot of the ARCA backmarkers took exception to that. I know Alex Clubb did. Ron Vandermeer did. And I would believe Brad probably did as well. I don't call those teams junk. Those guys are the foundation of the series. But to an extent, and I will say to an extent, I do sympathize with the 18 a little bit. Brad was running, in my opinion, and this is coming from a guy who works for him, a speed that I didn't feel like was safe for him to be out there. And that's coming from a guy who works for him. I understand, they were having some motor overheating issues, some motor issues, but I'm not going to lie, watching the race, it was quite noticeable that Brad was not able to hold a safe speed and I believe he probably should have been black flagged. The 0-3 was holding an okay speed to my knowledge. Still was pretty off the pace, but at the issues that they had during the race, it was understandable. But calling them junk, I think that's just a little rude. Now, was that in the heat of the moment? Yes, I do think that Sammy Smith's post-race comments, I mean, he was still in the car. So obviously it was a heat of the moment interview. But I wouldn't call them junk, man. You know, those are your friends out there. You know, those are your technically those are your co-workers. You got to be nice to everyone. You know, these guys are struggling. You know, Alex, Brad, Vandermeer, you know, they have their own money. They have their own team. They're trying their best. But I do sympathize a little bit. The 48, in my opinion, was a little off the pace, too much for my liking. And at times, the 0-3 did get in the way. But again, it's a 3/8 mile short track. They're going to get in the way. They're going to get in the way. But again, that's just the struggles when it comes to a 3/8 mile short track. You're going to have that. And if Sammy Smith wants to be in the bigger rankings of racing, he's going to have to continue to deal with that. I just think it's also a case of also a guy like Sammy Smith, who's never had to be in that position, or very rarely had to be in the position of a guy like Brad Smith, where he doesn't really know the feeling of getting lapped time after time after time. And maybe that would give him some more respect. That's why I always say, you know, a lot of these young kids, they should experience what it's like to be an ARCA backmarker. Maybe that would give them more respect, and they'll treat them with more respect. You know, let's put Jesse Love in a Hillenburg entry. And let's, number one, I want to see how he does. Because, I mean, if you put a guy like Jesse Love in a Hillenburg car, he'll go out there and almost win the race. But my thing is, I'm just saying, like, have them know what it's like to get lapped. You know, have them know what it's like to, you know, battle from behind and trying your best. And a lot of these young kids who are in these top rides never have experienced that, or very rarely have. So they have the mindset of, hey, you're slow as, you know, get out of my way. And I really, you know, honestly, from a backmarker fan, I don't appreciate that. A lot of backmarker drivers don't appreciate that. A lot of backmarker car owners don't appreciate that. You know, the backmarkers deserve a lot of respect. But yeah, so that's just my little gripe there. But we got into the race. If you guys did watch the pre-race broadcast, the 0-3 was actually on jack stands on its pit road area, was not participating in the on-track autograph session. They had continued issues with the brakes and fixing the master cylinder. They were able to take the green flag. All 20 cars took the green flag. Sammy Smith shot out to an early lead. As usual, like the last race, Dallas Free parked within 3 laps. We had an early caution for the 17 of Taylor Gray, who just threw it into turn 1. Didn't stick at all. Threw it into turn 1. It didn't stick. He spun around. They tried to keep it green, but Taylor couldn't get the car cranked in time, so they had no choice but to throw the caution. Obviously, at that point, only one car had been a lap down. That was Brad. That is my hearing. You know, Brad was getting lapped literally every 5 laps. Yeah, in the chat, I have no idea how Dallas's last name is pronounced. I'm literally just saying Fruit. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but if I'm not, I apologize. So, yeah, that caution came out. Brad got the free pass. We went back to green for another 23 laps. By that point, the 0-1 of DL had parked. The 10 of Zachary Tinkle had parked. And then on lap 34, Willie Mullins would then get into his teammate at Andy Hillenburg, Bryce Hausberg, sending him around. It was very weird because for some reason there was hardly any damage to the car, but it's like Bryce couldn't get the car cranked or something. The car ended up going on the hook. And Bryce actually got out of the car. They got back to the garage. Bryce just ended up getting right back in, and he was out back on the track within minutes. They literally lost probably 10 to 15 laps just trying to get the car ready. So, if Zachary, who's in the chat right now, if he could tell us what was wrong with the 11, I'd like to know, because, there was really no damage at all on the car, but yet it's like they couldn't get it cranked. That's my only theory, is they just had trouble getting it cranked. We went back to green there. Jesse Love was actually, despite the dominance of the 18 on this restart, Jesse Love was able to get ahead of the 18 of Sammy Smith. But just 4 laps later, Willie Mullins would get into another vehicle, spinning the 25 of Tony Breidinger around, who was also running the I don't know if it really was, but it looked like that Tony was running the exact same car that she was running the previous week at Berlin. It appears that from Zachary Tinkle, guys, what happened to the 11 is that when he got spun, he downshifted and got stuck in between gears. So I can imagine that's pretty tough to get out, but I'm just glad they were able to get the car back out on the track and Bryce was at least able to finish. So yeah, 25 of Tony Breidinger got spun around. She had despite the great qualifying run, Tony had a rough night. By this point, Amber Balkan it was a tough night for the ladies. Amber Balkan in the 30 had run into the back of someone on the restart on lap 34, or I think it was the restart on lap 11, actually, and just completely caved in the front nose. She had to pit because the car was overheating. They had to take the hood back down. Shortly after they would go to the green, after Breidinger spun, she would retire due to overheating, risking that they didn't want the engine to blow up because, the Ilmore motors, they cost a lot to get fixed. So by this point, lap 55, we already had only 4 cars drop out, and the final 16, from what I believe, were committed to running the whole distance. We would run another 22 laps until the first break. By this point, the 18 of Sammy Smith had gotten back past Jesse Love in the 20, and really one final lead change on lap 61, and that was pretty much it. I mean, spoiler alert, shocker, the 18 went from lap 62 to 250 leading. So that's kind of a spoiler right there, but we're going to talk about more of what happened in the mid part of the field. So the first break came. The free pass was the 12 of Willie Mullins, ironically, but it did become apparent again that both of the Rev entries were not doing well. Vandermeer, he was trying to hold his own, but he was struggling a little bit too. The 35 was struggling just a little bit as well. Really only the 20 and the 15 were holding their own. Tom Hezer was having a couple of issues. And it would become apparent on one restart later in the race that we will get to later. They went back to green on lap 83 for a 54-lap run. By this point, like I said, the Starton Parkers had kind of run their race. They were done. We were only down to 16 cars. Apparently, coming in from also Zachary Tinkle, Tony had right-reared Mullins on lap 11 restart, which I think set Willie off a little bit, and not to run it, and he had to dive low not to run under Willie. So maybe that's why Mullins spun Breidinger. Maybe, Willie got a little hot-headed. It wouldn't shock me if it was Willie. I mean, I love Willie, but it wouldn't shock me if that's what happened. Either way, do think it was a little unwarranted because I believe Breidinger was ahead of him at the time. Looks like that was Balkan, actually. Oops, sorry. I didn't want to start anything there. But yeah, getting back to the racing, the 18 is just, he's just hauling. That's the best way I can describe it. He's just lapping cars left and right. We had our next caution again. Poor Willie Mullins, his third car that he spun out, the 2 of Nick Sanchez. Like I said, it was just Raja had a tough race, but Nick Sanchez shockingly had a really, really tough race in the Rev number 2 entry. He got spun out by Willie. He was already almost 2 laps down by that point, so that didn't help anything. Raja, ironically enough, got the free pass on that caution, which probably saved Raja from losing more spots on the track. They would run another 32 laps on lap 140, from lap 145 to 176 until we had our second break of the race. At this point, we only had about 14 cars running full-time on the track. The 03 of Alex Club was in and out of the infield, still struggling with the car literally caught on fire on the left front. They managed to get back out and finish the race. And Brad was struggling with overheating issues. it appeared that he would come out, run like 20 or 30 laps, and then come back in, come back out, come back in. You guys know how it works. If you saw it on the broadcast, you saw Brad's car sitting on pit road. So that was kind of the apparent situation on the track. Coming out of the break number 2 restart, we had probably one of the biggest moments of the race. The 55 of Tom Hezard did not go. Pierre Deddy missed a shift. Held up everyone. The 2 of Nick Sanchez just plowed into the back of him, killing the 2's race car. And I guess just trying to get around him, the 11 of Bryce Hogsberg nearly yeeted himself right into the side of the 55, in which then the cars behind him almost yeeted themselves into him. So it could have been a calamity wreck in the back part of the field, but everybody saved it. The problem was they didn't throw a caution. So all those cars who were stuck behind that crash, they were already almost 3/4 of a lap behind by the time the race had gotten restarted. And for poor Sanchez, you couldn't pit under green. So Nick Sanchez, unfortunately, had to run the final 69 laps with the damage. And it absolutely killed his car. It absolutely killed Sanchez's car. And he would finish a disappointing 11th. Vandermeer Jr. and both Willie Mullins getting past him in the final couple of laps. Not much else happening on track. Brad Smith officially retired from the race with 20 laps to go, completing 116 laps. That left 15 left on the 15 cars left on the track. Landon Pendleton had gotten past the 43 of Daniel Dye late in the race. So did the 17 of Taylor Gray. Daniel Dye really needed a good points day. Did finish ahead of Rev, but definitely didn't gain the points that he wanted. And while all that was happening, the 18 of Sammy Smith was just cruising to an easy win. And sure enough, Sammy Smith, with a new sponsor this weekend, Allstate Peterbilt Group, takes the victory in the Menards 250. Jesse Love was second. Landon Pendleton was third. Taylor Gray was fourth. Daniel Dye was fifth. Tom Hezard was sixth. Those were the only cars in the lead lap. Raja, man, 2 laps down in seventh. I mean, like I keep saying, guys, I don't know what it is, but Rev really, really struggling. Rev is really struggling on these short tracks, and it's really kind of shocking to see because you would expect them to excel on these short tracks. But 2 laps down in seventh. Van Alst was 2 laps down in eighth. Ninth was Willie Mullins, 4 laps down. Vandermeer was 10th, 4 laps down. Sanchez down in 11th, 4 laps down. And Breidinger down in 12th, 7 laps down. I don't know if she abused her tires, but man, in those last probably 25 laps, Breidinger was really running some slow laps. I could tell by her lap chart. So it was really confusing to see what was going on. Did she lose a cylinder? Did she, some mechanical issue? Either way, the 25 was not on pace at all and had a really dismal run, unfortunately. And hopefully they can get that corrected. And then, of course, Alex Clubb, who came in 117 laps down, but nonetheless never give up, finishing the race, claiming the final 15th position. The race itself, I would give it, I don't know how to call this one really. I would give it about a 7. It's one of those races where you don't watch for the lead, but if you watch the mid-pack battles, which I would admit they did a great job of showing. They really did. The one thing I love about ARCA is they really do show almost every part of the field. They will show the back markers if something interesting is happening between them. I can respect that part. They will not just show the leader every single lap. But yeah, if you look at it past the leadership part of the race, it was good. Like I said, about a 7 out of 10. From coming in from Zachary Tinkle, guys, they really seem to run a very conservative camber angles on their cars, and he wonders if they were struggling to move with tire wear. That could be true. Again, it's weird to see a team that runs short tracks constantly struggling this much in the last 3 weeks. They still got the points lead, but Dye is starting to reel them back in. And they're really lucky because had Dye won Berlin, he would actually be the points leader right now. So yeah, those were the race results. The point standings after this race, Whereas this, Raja Karuth, again, still leads the points by 5 points now over his teammate Nick Sanchez, but Daniel Dye has now cut that deficit down to 9. So the 3-horse race for the championship continues, and it's all between 10 points. Tony Breidinger is in 4th, 54 points behind. Greg Van Alst has passed Amber Balkan, moving into 5th, 58 points behind. Amber Balkan is 6th, 65 points behind. Our man Zachary is 7th, 107. Excuse me. And our final full-time driver, Brad Smith, in 8th, 110 behind. If you guys want to know where Sammy Smith is in the point standings, Sammy is actually just below Brad in 9th place in the points, 171 behind. Now, will Sammy Smith win the championship? Again, he won't. But he will win. He might have a chance to win another championship, the Sioux Chiefs Short Track Showdown Championship, which takes place at 10 races randomly throughout the season. And right now, Sammy Smith leads that championship. So although Sammy Smith is not going for the main drivers' championship, although Smith is not going for the main drivers' championship, he still is going after a drivers' type championship in general, the Sioux Chief Championship, which is currently being led by himself. He's got a 17-point lead over Jesse Love. Taylor Gray is in 3rd. Raja's in 4th. Sanchez is in 5th. Daniel Dye is 6th. Tony Breidinger is 7th. Van Alst is 8th. Balkan is 9th. And Brad is 10th. So you could say that that is another championship that possibly the 18 team is looking at, and that's what they're shooting for, which, again, makes more sense. Now, in terms of where Sammy might finish in the main series drivers championship, I could see him passing Brad. As far as we know now, Zachary, he doesn't have a full-time ride yet set for the season. He's kind of been jumping from teams this season. I hope he does find one, of course. So it appears that Smith could probably get at least one more position, and possibly, I would presume, he will catch Brad. He's 61 points behind, but he's catching him pretty fast per race. I could still see, let's see here. As far as high as he could finish, I could see him finishing about 5th or 6th in the points. So I still think Sammy Smith has a shot at a top 5 points finish. So that's kind of the ARCA portion there for Elko. Mid-Ohio is up next. Our next race we're going to be talking about is actually the West race at Irwindale. But coming up at Mid-Ohio, some notes. Tony Cosentino will be in the 11. I do believe that'll be a full race entry. In terms of the entry list, I'm hearing maybe around 20 cars. We only had about 17, 18 last year, so hopefully we can get a bigger field. Hopefully we'll get some road ringers. Stanton Barrett drove for Andy last year. I hope they can make that happen again because that'd be awesome. But yeah, we'll have to see for the Mid-Ohio race. I do think it'll be a lot better than last year's because Ty Gibbs had a lot of road racing experience and just destroyed the field. But I think with everybody, with this road race being a little bit more evenly matched, I could see this ARC race at Mid-Ohio being a lot more competitive than people think. So yeah, and then our final thing for this race is the owner standings. That's the championship that really pays the most. Billy Vennerini's 20 car is still leading. They were able to build a bigger gap over the Rev entries. Billy Vennerini is in first with the 20, 15 points ahead of the 2 Siegel entries. The 6 of Max Siegel is in second, 15 points behind. The 2 of Max Siegel is in third, 20 points behind. And I said it to myself, can he catch him? I think he can now. I said 34 points was too far back. I might be eating my own words. The Kyle Busch 18 entry is now up to 4th, just 22 points behind. So looks like KBM is still in this Owners Championship. So I think that's great. It definitely gives them something to shoot for in terms of the Sioux Chiefs Short Track Championship and, of course, the main ARCA Owners Championship, which pays the most. So yeah, transferring over into the race this weekend, there is no main ARCA Series race this weekend, but we do have the West Series back. They are running at Irwindale. This is one of the few tracks on the ARCA West schedule that they run twice a year, and I am happy to say that they have a bigger field than they did the last time. It was a very shockingly small field the first time they went to Irwindale. Only 15 cars started the race, which was a huge disappointment for me. But I did attribute it to the real world issues we are seeing right now, which are heavily affecting the West Coast. And I do think are affecting the ARCA West entry lists, because for a lot of these low budget guys, they simply just can't afford to bring the car to the track anymore because, well, it's just too expensive. The spring Napa Auto Parts 150 saw, again, like I said, just 15 cars. We did have 4 or 5 cars, though, actually withdraw from the event. So it did look like a bigger entry list. We had 2 starting parks in that one. 13 did attempt the whole race. Tanner Rev dominated that one. But I'm happy to say that this one is a heck of a lot bigger. 22 cars with some notable entries, which I think will make it definitely a must-see race for this weekend that I'll be glad to finally watch live. Looks like we got some more ARCA news in the chat. Wayne will not bring a car to Mid-Ohio. Obviously, of course, Wayne is trying to get his cars fixed. The Ford is badly damaged. The Dodge is being transferred into a Toyota. And Con Nicolopoulos is scheduled to run the car at Pocono. By the way, Con Nicolopoulos just created a Twitter account, Con Nicolopoulos Racing. Go look it up on social media. Give them a follow. But yeah, so Wayne will not be at Mid-Ohio, but he will be at Pocono, and hoping to be at as many races for the rest of the season as they can. But yeah, going back to the West Series, we had 22 cars. Jake Finch, I announced it yesterday. Jake Finch will be in the number 1 entry. This is going to be the Phoenix Racing entry that we did see on the West Circuit. They ran at Pensacola and Nashville. Apparently, they're saying that Khan will be in the 27. I was told, Zachary's telling me the 27. I was told the 06, but we'll have to see who's going to run who quick. But we'll have to see. I was told he was running the 06. Going back to the West Series, though, Jake Finch will be running. Definitely he'll be a contender. It's kind of the same entry. Sebastian Arias is in the 4. Jake Drew in the 6. Takuma Koga, the regulars. Chris Loudon will be in the 11. Kyle Keller is back. The deal that was supposed to be running the whole race looks like it may have just fallen apart, unfortunately. But Kyle Keller is back. The 12 team is back, but is under new ownership. It is now under Jerry Pitts Racing, and Kyle will be driving a Ford rather than a Chevrolet, and will be a teammate to the number 7 of Takuma Koga. I'm just happy to see another competitive entry out there, and I'm curious to see what Kyle can do, because their last race, the only real race that they had outside of Phoenix, was Kern County, where they encountered electrical issues and didn't finish. Todd Sousa's, of course. The biggest story of today, Landon Lewis replaces Austin Herzog in the Bill McNally Racing 16 entry. It shouldn't really come as a shock. I had said it on the show that I was not really impressed with Austin's results. Phoenix, only 14th. He did get 3rd at Irwindale, but that's because of a late race restart. 8th at Bakersfield, 9th at Portland, and 6th at Sonoma. You know, you can call those solid runs, but for what the West Series field is, that literally should be a top 3 car probably every week. So we will just have to see where that goes. Again, I think Austin was just paying to drive the ride. Was he a paid driver? I'm not for sure. But Landon Lewis has been just absolutely spectacular this season, driving for the Bruce Cook Racing team. Don't blame Bill McNally for swiping him up. Unfortunately, doesn't have a chance at the championship, but I definitely think this could get us the runs that we're expecting out of the 16. Plus, Bill McNally Racing's at 98 wins. They're just 2 away from that ever so close 100, and you know Bill wants to get to that ever needed 100 wins. You know they have the flag made up for it. They're just wanting to bring it and use it. So yeah, Landon Lewis will now drive the 16 the rest of the season. Amber Slagle is back with the MMI racing team. Steve McGowan's team driving the 17. The Pedroncelli family, the 31 of Paul, the 33 of PJ. Andrew Tuttle in the 39. Christian Rose in the 42. Trevor Huddleston is back with his own team again in the 50. Joey East, Eric Red, who is making his first start since Phoenix where they had to crash. Nick Jonades in the 77. Jalen Mack will be driving a second entry, not be driving a second entry, an affiliated entry of Bill McNally Racing. They'll be driving for Mack Motorsports, which is his own team, but the sponsorship does include Bill McNally and Napa, and it is a Chevrolet, so that does lead me to believe that possibly that this is a car that they have either purchased or leased from Bill and just and are just running it. It could be theirs, it could be leased. We don't know that kind of information yet. Bradley Erickson was the one I was going to mention, the 84. This is a team car to the Mike Naki Kluwer Motorsports team and the 54 of Joey East. Bradley Erickson also making his debut. Bridget Burgess and Cole Moore. Like I said before, Irwindale is the type of track we need a good solid field to put on a good show, and thank goodness we have it. I think Landon Lewis is really going to shock some people in that car, but Jake Finch, man, that's a really, really good team. They have a great operation. Jake is a heck of a driver. I am going to go with Jake Finch as my pick. I'm going to tell you guys outright, but I'm going to pick Landon Lewis to finish second. The start and parks in this race, I only see one, and that being the 31 of Paul, maybe the 39 of Andrew Tuttle, depending on how fast he's probably going. But yeah, 22 cars versus the 15 we got in the spring race is definitely a good sight to see. Some people are picking Tanner Reff. I don't blame you. He led flag to flag in last year's race. Sunrise Ford has definitely been on the upswing this season. If you guys want to know the payouts for this race, we'll pull up the competitor website real quick and we will tell you the payouts. It's the usual about $5,000, but we'll go over the bonus awards and what the maximum amount a team can earn for this race. Like I said, $5,000. First place, $12,400 with all the contingency awards. $5,300 for second, and $3,950 for third. Last place in this race, 22nd, pays $20. They wish $1,000, and of course, the top 20 cars, not all 22, but the top 20 will receive a $200 bonus from Flow Racing. So for a lot of those lower budget teams, they do want to be in that car. Landon Lewis, I really hope he has a ride for the dirt races this season. He impressed last year, finishing in the top 5 in the first one and winning the second one at DuQuoin, which was just that mud show where everybody got destroyed. But yeah, I really hope Landon makes the most of this opportunity. He's a really good talent. He's being managed by Ron Hornaday, and who's really a better manager than Ron Hornaday? A guy who I wish would really get back into the sport a little bit more, because Ron Hornaday could influence so many young kids in this series. And I really think that's why Landon's such a good driver. I mean, who really better to teach you on the short tracks than Ron Hornaday, an accomplished championship short track driver who's raced Cup cars, Xfinity cars, but Winston West cars, the K&N series, trucks, everything you can imagine, modifieds on the short tracks. So I really think Landon Lewis could be one of the biggest prospects in ARCA. We just got to give it time, and I hope he can get the rides to really show it. But if I'm Venerini, man, Venerini, Rev, if you've got a third car or fourth car and you got an open slot for these dirt races, I really hope Landon gets another good shot. Now, could they run the same car they did last year? Yes, that car was not badly damaged at all. It was fixable. So hopefully Landon will be at the dirt races this year, because I want to see that team be competitive. But yeah, our point standings for the race are as this. It did take a while for them to update because, Racing Reference lately has not been updating as quickly as they normally do. Jake Drew has pulled away to just a huge lead. 35 points over Todd Souza. Tanner Reff is in third, minus 37. Cole Moore is in fourth, minus 38. Take out Austin Herzog, who was in fifth. PJ Pedroncelli, you could say, is now in fifth, minus 47. Joey East is in seventh. Takuma Koga is in eighth. Bridget Burgess is ninth. And Paul Pedroncelli is in 10th. Where is Landon Lewis? He is down in 15th. He's only completed 2 of the 5 races so far this season. But the people in front of him have not accumulated that many points. And based off of Paul Pedroncelli doing mostly starting parts this season, I do think that Landon Lewis has a good chance at still getting a top 10 points finish, but it's going to be close. Another battle is the owner points. Of course, the 6 of Sunrise Ford Racing, Bob Brancati still leading, 35 points over Kelly Souza, owner of the 13, with Sunrise Ford being in third, Bill McNally, best right now, being in fourth and fifth, and the Pedroncelli team being in sixth, Joey East and the Naki Kluers seventh, Jerry Pitts eighth, Bridget Burgess ninth, and the Pedroncelli team also in the Sebastian Arias Eric Nascimento team is in 10th. My apologies. So that's pretty much the rundown for this race. The race itself is on Flow Racing, Saturday, July 2nd, my birthday. Look forward to tuning into that one after the Xfinity race again. I know that's during the SRX race, but I will say this. Speaking of Irwindale, I know it's way out west, but man, if you really want to give a good track for those SRX machines, Irwindale, where the fastest groove is the outside line, I think SRX would fit perfectly at Irwindale. I just think the travel cost to it would be too much. That's my only problem with that. But I honestly believe you put SRX at Irwindale, that would give you a heck of a show with them trying to pass each other and the outside line being the fastest one. But yeah, so it's on the same time as SRX, but I'm going to be watching that race. I'm sure most of you guys will be watching SRX. But if you have the opportunity of 2 screens, and if you have Flow Racing, I strongly suggest you guys watch the Flow Racing ARCA race and SRX, because I do think this weekend's race will be a heck of a lot more entertaining than our last one, just strongly because we got more cars, more competitive cars, and as of right now, only 1 confirmed start and park in the field. That means we got 21 full race cars, which makes me even happier. We got a really, really good field here, and that's always something I like to see, because I was really nervous, with the real world issues that are happening right now, that the West Series would struggle the most, because the costs over on that division have really, really went up. Not as bad on the East Coast, but yeah. I agree with what Zachary Tingle said in the chat. Why not just put the ARCA cars and the SRX cars on there at the exact same time? I mean, is it really that bad of an idea? They're both fun to watch. But, yeah, I like that idea. Throw some of those ARCA guys in those SRX machines. Imagine, how about this? You imagine Billy Venturini versus Paul Tracy and Superstar Racing Experience. That would be awesome. Billy Venturini versus Paul Tracy. I want to see it. That would be funny. Put Andy Hillenberg out there. Man, I consider him a superstar. Put Andy Hillenberg in the Superstar Racing Experience. That'd be fun to see. Yeah, I'm just throwing out random ideas. That really would be cool to see, though. You cannot tell me you guys don't want to see that. Andy Hillenberg in a Superstar Racing Experience car. I think he would show he still got it at almost 60 years old. But yeah, guys, I strongly suggest you watch the race. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll be live tweeting for that race. Finally get to watch an ARCA race live after being on the road for so many weeks. But yeah, just thanks again for watching, guys. Sorry we were a little late tonight. Like I mentioned, this Saturday is my birthday, July 2nd. We're at 334 subs. If we could get up to 350 by my birthday, that would be a big present for me. And then, of course, at 500 subs, we will be doing our next giveaway. Want to put that out there too. And just again, guys, keep up the good work, supporting this channel, supporting the account. Can't thank you guys enough for your support. You guys make this more fun every week. Actually, having people live chatting with me makes this just so much more fun. And again, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. I'm not sure if we're going to be here tomorrow for backmarker battles yet. I want to. We do have some low-budget stories to go over. If we do, we do, but I can't confirm yet, guys. But I assure that if I do it, I hope you guys will join me tomorrow anyway. But I'm not going to confirm anything yet because I do have a lot planned for tomorrow. But anyway, guys, it's now just hitting 7 o'clock. You guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Like and subscribe to the channel. Remember the giveaway. Send me a happy birthday wish if you want. And we'll catch you all either tomorrow or next week live right here on my channel. Thanks again for watching. Take care. We'll see y'all real soon. So long, guys.